welcome to this video where I'll be looking at Coastline by Akhil Adam Sounds. Akhil has quickly gained a reputation for creating innovative and inspirational software for musicians. I've previously looked at his effects, Ridgewalk and Weeping Wall, along with his sequencer, Waymaker, and Outgrowth, his unique sample-based instrument. His latest release, Coastline, continues that innovative trend. But what is Coastline? Coastline is a texture generator that complements any input signal. So in one sense it's an effect unit, but in another it's a synthesizer that adds texture and evolving layers to your sound. It can both affect the original signal or add to it in a similar way that you might do with reverb or delay. So you can use this as either an insert effect or a send if you prefer. Akhil has created a comprehensive video manual, so this won't be a tutorial as such, but an overview of what Coastline is and trying it out with some sounds. So here is that quick overview. At the heart of Coastline are sustainers. They can be thought of as a method of resynthesizing the sound you input. These can run infinitely for long sustained washes of sound, or their hold time can be reduced here on the right hand side, and the threshold at which new sustainers are triggered can also be adjusted. Sustainers attempt to match the nature and characteristics of the input sound, and you can have up to 5 of them. So I have a simple electric piano sound here, and you'll see the threshold time, the hold time is set to infinite, and if I play a chord and let go, you'll see that it's sustaining that sound over time. In fact, an infinite time. It will continue as a drone if you so wish. Now I can now trigger another sound on top of that, so let's try playing an octave down. And that's now sustaining. And as I said before, you can have up to 5 sustainers. There are 2 methods used in creating sustainers, Tide and Glade. Tide uses a form of additive synthesis to resynthesize the audio. So let's play another chord again. And we'll have a look at the Tide controls. What's interesting is here we can adjust the volume of the Tide level, which is matched on the main page here. But you can set the number of partials that's used by Tide. So if I reduce it, you'll see that we're just left with the loudest harmonic that was created. So 15 is sort of the default position. If I double click it, Wave Shape will change the sound, as you can see from the pop-up on the screen, to more of a sawtooth as you move it to the left, and it will create a wave folding as you move it to the right. So if you look at the effect on the sine wave, you'll see that it's introducing a form of wave folding. There's also a chorus effect, which is good for just sort of keeping that little bit of movement while the sound sustains. At the bottom of the screen are 2 different methods of altering the sound, called ebb and flow, and Akhil goes into great detail about ebb and flow and their effect upon the sound in his video tutorial. And the text boxes, as you hover over, will remind you what they actually do. If I select offset, it's offsetting the harmonics to give us a more inharmonic effect. Or if I hover over this one, you'll see that it's emphasizes or de-emphasizes the frequencies. So again, we're getting an inharmonic effect there. The other effect, flow, has a more direct impact on the sound. So if I click to flow now, you'll see the sound changes instantly. And if we adjust chroma, it's changing the proportion of the partials. And if I go into negative territory, you hear the effect there. Now these lend themselves very nice to modulation, and we'll have a look at modulation so that you can change the sound over time. And shift will, if I increase that again, Shift will shift those partials by a percentage. Glade is a granular sustainer, so let's have a look at Glade. So I'll leave it on the same sound because it's set to hold for infinite amount of time, so it'll keep going. And if I switch to Glade, you'll see that some controls you will be familiar with from granular synthesis. So if I blur the sound, it's adjusting the levels effectively. And if I increase the churn, you'll see that it's the random places are from the waveform where it's drawing its samples from. The random amount is increased. The size of the grains from tiny to larger. And the erode command can be thought of as bit reduction, as it's reducing the sample rate of playback, as you can see from the screen. However, if you ask me, the control's the wrong way around, because as you reduce the erosion effect, or increase it, so you're introducing the effect of reducing the bit rate. So if we look at the filter options, you'll see we have a low pass, band pass and high pass. So if I reduce that now, you'll see that it's also a stereo filter. So as I dial that up, you should hear the effect if you're listening on headphones or through a stereo source. You can adjust the resonance. And again, this lends itself nicely to being modulated, which we will cover shortly. And there's also a feedback control. Things can get pretty gnarly if you increase the feedback. You can also offset the frequencies here for either Glade, reverb or tide section, so that's a handy extra. And the high pass filter in action. The audio matrix allows audio modulation, which can be useful for adding a little grit or full-on distortion. So here I'm modulating tide by itself with amplitude modulation. I could also set it, let's see, to Glade. Or I could drop a sample in to impose the characteristics of that sample upon some existing audio. We'll look at that later too. And to round off, we have a reverb section, just to finish off the signal chain. Of course, it's in the modulation where Coastline really comes alive, because that will introduce movement and fluidity to the sound. So let's try a serum patch on this preset Frosted, and then I'll show you what's going on under the hood. So if I play a simple chord, so I've now released that chord, and we're starting to hear now just the effect of Coastline. You'll hear that the movement and the animation in the sound. And this has been introduced by the shift and chroma being modulated in the flow section of Tide. Let's look at another example. So let's check out this second pad on Afloat. I'll stop that playing. So what was giving us that sound was that the Glade pitch was transposed up an octave, and if we look at the filter, you'll see that there was gentle movement of the filter. Both the stereo spread and the feedback was slowly being adjusted. Let's have a look at another example. So for this example, this is an Omnisphere choir, and it's going through the preset Pitter Patter. So you can hear what sounds like rain in the background, and you'd be correct. If we move to the matrix, you'll see that a rain sample is providing the amplitude modulation for the tide section. So we can increase the amount. Where it is sounds about right. Remember, this is not just adding a sample. This is actually using any sample that you import or a few presets that they give you to amplitude modulate the sound itself. So for this next example, we're going to try and create a drone, and to do that we're going to look at some of the modulation assignments. This is how you can create your own assignments within Coastline. To do this, I'm going to use Phonon as the source material. This is one of the latest granular synthesizers, and it particularly specializes in mangling the sounds. You can see there are so many controls here that you have to shape and drive the grains and warp the sound into the way that you want, including LFOs and envelopes and you name it, and you probably have a control for manipulating it. So for source material, I'm going to use this sound, but it's low material. But if you listen, you'll hear that it's about to, there it goes, totally manipulate the sound almost beyond recognition. But I'm just really after that small bass section. So I've called it the preset Caustics, and let's give it that low bass frequency. Right, so we've captured that sound. Now, as we had a buffer setup of 3 seconds, we've ignored that high frequency content. So let's find out what is creating the sound. Well, if we look at the filter, we've got a visual representation. There's a lot of filter movement going on. So let's see what's happening. You'll see that if we look at the frequency and the feedback and the stereo spread are all being modulated. Let's set up some of our own modulation. If I go to the tide setting and select modulation, you'll see that to assign an LFO, that particular one is set to stereo spread. Let's see if 3 is set to anything. No, 3 isn't in use. 2 is set to nothing as well. So at the moment, that stereo spread is being modulated by LFO1. So let's select LFO2 and use it to modulate the offset command. So I literally drag to assign and put it on there. Now we need to slow that down a bit and give it a bit more depth. Too much. So that depth is about right. Let's slow it down. In fact, let's change it to a sine wave. The morph control is quite interesting. I can morph the sine wave to a slightly non-standard sine. Or I can take, for example, let's go to stepped random, and if I speed this up and increase the amount, but if I dial morph in, you'll see that it's now softening out the random nature of the stepped random. So I'll dial that down again, slow it down again. We've now got a bit of extra movement. So as well as the 4 LFOs, you'll see that there are 2 jitters, which is rather like another randomized value, but it's a more predictable randomized value. It slowly goes from 0 to 100%. The sequence is quite an interesting command. You can assign that to any modulation source. You could possibly assign it to pitch, but that wouldn't necessarily be a good idea. But maybe if you were applying that to a rhythm, that would be useful. You can adjust the timing here of the rhythm itself and the length. and slew will also soften the effect between the various steps. Moving on down, there's a performance slider which I'll come to in a minute. There's also an envelope follower. Random per sustainer is you can sort of set the amount of modulation between a duration, so you can go from 0 to 10 seconds in this case, or you might want to set it to come in, say from 6 seconds to 10 seconds. So you can be quite specific in where you want the modulation to begin, and you can also modulate sustainer pitch. You may have thought if you're using this on an insert that there's no wet-dry command, and you'd be quite right. But that's not an oversight, because you can add a wet and dry command as a destination in the modulation. So if I actually go down to a performance slider, it's much more than simply a wet-dry mix. Let's add a destination, and we'll set that, instead of to volume, let's set it to dry-wet proportion, okay? And if we dial that to 100%, you'll have 100% between wet and dry. But if we also add here, for example, adjust the reverb amount, we could adjust that 10%. And if we go to adjust, for example, Glade, we could adjust the volume of Glade by, let's say, a negative value, and add yet another destination. So this becomes quite an effective macro, so we can adjust feedback in the filter, and let's give that quite a high feedback. So quite a versatile macro that can be a dry-wet balance if you want it to be, but it can be much more than that as well. Actually, hearing the effect of that filter feedback reminded me that I hadn't showed you how to set modulation to bipolar, so let's do that now. If I look at the jitter command, you'll see that that's set currently to filter feedback. Let's take that, increase that. There we hear that effect. But you'll see there's a plus button here. If I select that, it'll switch it to plus minus, and now we have both positive and negative bipolar modulation on the filter feedback, which is linked to this jitter command here. Well, I hope that gives you a good insight as to the capabilities of Coastline. It's yet another uniquely creative plugin from Akil. Do check out his very detailed video user guide. Please also like, comment, share and subscribe to the Waveform channel. YouTube has recently been making it harder for smaller creatives to survive, and that really does help. So if mid-video ad breaks are driving you mad, please subscribe so I can keep these to a minimum. So until the next video, thanks for watching.